Hi, my name is Daphne Caruso. I am an artist owner of the Art Corner here in Ely, Minnesota. And I got a phone call today from a person who was frustrated because she felt she was at a standstill in terms of her creativity. She just, being stuck in the house, she didn't know what to do. So I talked with her a little bit, and then I had an idea about taking my sketchbook and just showing you all how important it is to have a sketchbook and why you should have a sketchbook. So my sketchbook, this was this a sketchbook is a great way for you just to play. It doesn't have to be anything other than a way for you to get what you have inside of you out on paper. And it's also a great way to document your progress. So this was back in 2012 when I first started doing this. And so it's interesting. I'd like to go back and see my improvement from now to 2012. So it serves as that, and I use it as a way to play. It was a class I took. Here's another one. I'll back and forth. But this was some classes I took that I was playing around with, and sometimes I just need to get whatever it is I have in me. I need to get it out, and sometimes I don't have the time to do a big painting. Sometimes I have this urgency that I can't explain it, but I think you all have probably felt it. It's this need to get something out. And so a sketchbook works because it's a way for you to invest without having to invest really too much time, because it's a smaller sketchbook. So all this was back done in 2012. This is when I first started my career as an artist, and I use this, and I look back on it, and it amazes me. So back in 2012 is when I started, and I put it away, and then some, for whatever reason, back in 2017, I think it was, I just had this desire to start again. And so this was a class I had taken. Her name is Donna Downey, and she was inspirational. There's been quite a few instructors who were inspirational in my work, and she's one of them. And I loved her use of color. And acrylic has always frustrated me because I didn't understand why it was drying so fast. And so again, this was just practice. It was a class I bought from her, and so I practiced in one book. And so so I suppose, in terms of where you practice, you can certainly do pieces of paper. The issue with that is that then you have pieces of paper everywhere. And if you're like me, you end up with hundreds of pieces of paper and you forget where you put them and blah, blah, blah. So a journal is a great way for you to document your progress, and it's all in one spot. I've got probably 5 or 6 journals going at any one given time. And so again, this is just practice. Sometimes I want to practice a technique like I did with this one. I saw this somewhere and I love the idea of it. And so the question was, can I do it? So you practice it on this. And if it doesn't come out right, so what, right? I use this as a way to use extra paint. Most likely this was extra paint that I had for a particular project or a class I was doing. I didn't want to waste it, so I use it for this. This is a cupcake, and figure out if I can do the to make it look like the paper of a cupcake. Extra paint that I don't waste. And so here's one where I was wanting to see if I could. I had this idea in my head. I'm sure I saw it somewhere. I had this idea in my head, and I played around with it. And so I played around with it again, and I think this was first and this was the second one. But anyway, it just served to get whatever it is I needed to get out. This was a class I was taking, and I just use it to practice. This is a great page. This is one where I was stuck right with my creativity, so I'm a huge believer in books. So I went through some of my books or some of my videos, and I saw this technique where you take matte medium and you glue it. You put some matte medium down on your piece of paper, on your page, then you glue down some paper. And so what I did is then ripped my paper off. And what was left was this piece that reminded me immediately of the front of a ship. And so that was my takeoff point. And here I ended up having some leftover paint on my palette that I hate to throw away, and it was beautiful. So I used it as as waves. And then, again, you just play off of that. And on this page, I wanted to do a 2-page spread. So again, I followed the same lines here, the blue of the water, the black of the sky. And so I thought, well, okay, what do I do? What's in, what can I add here? A fish, that makes sense. And so that's what I did. So really sometimes all you need is just one spark of creativity. A question I get too is, I'm stuck. Where do I get some inspiration from? Magazines are a great place. This was based on an image in a magazine. I love the idea of it. I wanted to see if I can replicate it and just work with the body and make the body nice and loose. And it worked. Here's another one that I did. This was not from a magazine, but this is from a book, I think, that I was practicing. I liked the technique. I liked the looseness of it, and I wanted to see if I can do it, and I did. And so, again, a journal like this, a painting journal, sketch journal, serves as a way for you to just experiment. I did a series of A to Z animals, and this was my practice piece for the E is for elephant. I wanted to see if I can get that curve of the trunk, and so I did it here first before I went and actually painted it, and it worked. I was able to get that looseness I was looking for. Here's another inspiration from a magazine. I love the idea of it, and originally this was done in colored pencil, and this has been here for a while. Well, years later, I was getting into acrylic painting, and I wanted to try this technique, this brushstroke technique. So I went back and I painted this, and I love how it looks. Practice, right? Practice makes perfect. So with this one, I looked at this. This was a dress I found in a magazine, and I tend to, believe it or not, paint really tight. And so I wanted to practice my painting loose. So I did this one first and realized it's not as loose as I wanted it to be. So what did I do? I go back and I did it again, and it's looser than the first one, not as loose as I wanted it to. So maybe at some point I'll go back and do it. But again, painting in a sketchbook just serves as a way to be able to keep track of what you're doing. This was a practice piece when I was doing my R is for rooster. Did I want this, or did I want something like this? And I think I did neither one of these images. I ended up going with a completely different style, but this helped me determine what I wanted to do. Here is another one. This is one that I did from a magazine. I loved the idea of it, and for this one, I love the figure, especially the woman figure. I've always been intrigued by it, and so I wanted to see if I can make the flow of the body, the lines. I wanted them loose, and again, this one first started out as a simple pencil sketch, and sometime later when I got comfortable with color and with adding color, I went back and I added color, and then I added pencil, and I love how it came out. Here's one, because I typically do draw ladies, and typically they are white-skinned ladies. So I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to get in my comfort zone. So I thought, let me try to see if I can do a different skin tone. And as you can see, I've got 3 or 4 skin tones here, but it's experimenting, and so it's helping me learn how to do what I'm doing and see if I like it. And actually, I love the idea of it. And again, her hair was the leftover on my palette. It was just too beautiful to throw away. So what do you do with it? Oh, ta-da! You put it on and use it as hair. So just I'll just run through some of my quick sketches here. I took a class from this woman called Bev Joswiak. I was lucky enough to get a grant from the Donald G. Gardner Trust, and 2 or 3 years ago, I went to Dillman's and I took a class from her. And so again, I wanted to get ready in my head for her class. And so what I did is I practiced it in my sketchbook. And I'm super happy with it. Now, if I had done this on a separate piece of paper, I can guarantee you I would have no idea where that piece of paper is. But because I did it in my sketchbook, here it is. B is for B, and this was a practice one. Again, this is the beauty of having everything in your journal. You can go back. So here is one. That was back in 2012. And if for no other reason than just for you to know how far you've come, that's a great reason to have a journal. This was probably one of my first pages, back in 2012. So I went from this to, let's see, some other ones. From this to this, I guess. The point is I've improved. I would have never have known how much I improved if I hadn't kept my journal, if I hadn't kept all my paintings in a journal. I don't like to waste paper, so any extra paint I have, it goes in my journal. I was sitting in a class with Cecilia, a friend of mine, Cecilia Rolando, and I like her style, so I wanted to see if I can copy it, so I tried it in my sketchbook. And it worked because I look at this piece and I know that's not mine. I look at it and I can see Cecilia's work in it. But again, this is a good way for you to practice different techniques, different styles, different color combinations. Let's see. Here's one. I was practicing. I remember this night that I had this thing inside me that I needed to get out, but it was late, I was tired, but I couldn't go to bed without doing something. So I ended up painting this. And this was a scene, this was from a photo I took when I went to Shagawale. I was somewhere. And so I look back now, and this has probably had 3 or 4 transformations. And at some point, I'll go back and retouch it up. And I'm looking at this, and it just doesn't have enough of a value separation. But again, this just serves back to give me ideas, and I get excited. I mean, it's amazing to me how far I've become. No, how far I've come. Here's a piece. Again, my animal series, my typical color palette is very intense. And I remember after doing maybe 5 or 6 or 7 of the animal series, I was done with all that color. But I wanted to keep on going. So what I did is I experimented with a palette that wasn't so intense. So another reason why you should keep a journal, a painting journal, because it helps you to experiment, like I said earlier, helps you experiment with color, with technique, and it keeps it all very tidy in one book. Here's some more practice pieces. Anything grabs my attention. I was at my daughter's house, and she's got little kids, so this was one of those play jumpy things that the kids sit in, and I loved the idea of it. I loved how it looked, so I quickly sketched it out, and it wasn't until probably months later that I had extra paint, and I thought, what can I do with it? So I went in, I found this painting, this drawing, and I painted it. At some point I'll finish it, or maybe not. I don't know. This was my H is for horse. Again, I did it here first because I wanted to get the feel for it. I wanted to get that hand movement, and I wanted to feel comfortable doing it, practicing it first, and then I did this and then went in and did it on an actual canvas piece. Experimentation. I think I had this wasn't left over. I just wanted to experiment. So I figured, let me just add color. And then after I added all my color, I saw what looked like to me was an elephant. And so I outlined it and then added some more paint, some more color inside. And this right here is using a stencil and gel gloss. So a lot of these techniques that anybody uses, they're very basic, easy techniques. The problem is that if you don't use them enough, or there's so many of them that you forget. So I go back to this and I remember, oh yeah, yep, I want to do that again. I was, here's one, I was practicing with something, I was using leftover paint, and so I'm not going to waste my paint, and so I painted on my papers. And this will work as a great backdrop to something. I'm not sure what yet, but it'll come. Playing. Again, this is something that I had done in one of my classes. It was an original was a pencil, and years later, I don't know, months later, I was into my painting and I wanted to play. I needed to do something quick and fast, and so instead of starting something new, I decided that I would paint this existing person. And again, my color palette, I like it, and I'll save this, and at some point I'll flip through this and think, oh yeah, that'd be a great palette for me to use. Leftover paint. One of my grandchildren, they were using this as a book to paste things down, and so I will use that at some point. I'll incorporate that. Again, leftover paint. I will not waste paint, and so when I give classes, when I do little demos, any leftover paint, I put it on my papers, and then it'll serve as a nice backdrop for something else. So I don't know, I think I mentioned it earlier that I did. I took that class from Bev Joswiak. And this is one piece, again, that right before I took her class, I wanted to make sure that I was in that frame of mind, that I had the flow that I was looking for her class. And so this was a practice piece I did. I do have her book, and I did a step-by-step tutorial from her book. And it gave me the confidence I needed to go in there and know that I could do what I needed to do. And this is another example of the technique that she used. But again, I just love that I can flip through this book and remember the things I've done. I think that's about it. Here's some leftover paint that I used for somebody. And I add, I'll do... doesn't make sense. I didn't use it for anybody. It was leftover paint that I had from a class. I won't waste it, so I painted this. And at some point, when I have some more leftover paint, I'll add to it. I've gone over this particular piece probably 5 or 6 times. Every time I have leftover paint, I'll go in and I'll use it. And at some point, I will take this and finish it, or maybe not. I don't know. Here's a practice piece I was doing. Another practice piece. There's one more I want to show you that was, see? Just pencil practice. There is one more I wanted to show you, and that one was, it's a class that I want to do, and it's using paper. It's right here. So in this particular one, this was practice piece I was doing. So you take deli paper and you paint it with paint, and because deli paper is so see-through, once you take that, you paint it, and you apply it to your paper, it disappears, and so you're left with this just great look. So this, the both wings, the body, the head, all that is that deli paper that I painted on, and then you accent it with more color. So anyway, the point again of this book is just to let people know and show people that you really don't need much, and this is a great way to get that thing you need out without investing too much time. And certainly as an artist and as the owner of an art store, I do have I have all of this, but you don't need all of it. So all you need is some paint, some pencils maybe, and more than anything, what you need is just that creativity, that want to create. So my next step in this book is to paint the cover. I've had this for a long time, And I recently, actually just today, I put a kit together for somebody, and it gave me the idea. This is a piece of, this is a drawing of one of my books, one of my sketchbooks, another sketchbook. And so I take a look at this, and boring. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to take this and apply it and play with it. So, so that's coming up next. Thank you for watching, and if you ever have any questions, any comments, you want some inspiration, please feel free to contact me at the Art Corner. Thanks. Bye.